Welcome back to Love and Understanding. My name is John Driggs, your host. Well, today I want to introduce spirituality in a way that's approachable to those of us who might consider ourselves skeptics, scientific, or rational thinkers. For those of us who are allergic to religion, dogma, and superstition. Very often for us, the term spirituality feels too icky. So we distance ourselves from it and anything that comes close to it. Spirituality, however, and the way I'd like to talk about it, is not a religion. There's nothing dogmatic or superstitious about it. Like physics, medicine, or engineering, spirituality is a field of study, the study of our direct nature, our mind body processes, our precious human life. We want to know ourselves, the world, and our relation to it. We want to understand the causes and conditions of our joys and our sorrows. We want to know what we value and how to uphold and live according to those values. We want to be loved, felt, and seen. And we want to love, feel, and see others in turn. We want to know what it means to be conscious and alive, and what it means to die. We want to live an examined life. So, just as the other sciences are committed to truth, spirituality is also committed to truth. It's a commitment to humbly, honestly, and ardently investigate our direct nature. It's a commitment to open awareness to awareness itself and the unfolding of its contents. Spirituality expresses a kind of passion for discerning what is subjectively true. For what is true is a matter of direct experience. And just as the other fields of study have their own tools to help them learn more about their subject matter, spirituality too has its own tools. The primary tool being mindfulness. Today, then, we'll explore how to formally apply mindfulness to what the Buddha called the four foundations of mindfulness, namely the body, feelings, mind states, moods, and emotions, and dhammas, or skillful frameworks. Before we do, however, I just like to thank all of you who support my work. And if you're not doing so already, I welcome you to visit my Substack page where you can become a subscriber. It's your generosity that allows me to continue this work. Okay, well, before we get into the four foundations, let's briefly recap what it means to be mindful. The first dimension of mindfulness I want to highlight is remembering to be present. It's the opposite of absent mindedness or spacing out. One teacher would often capture this when he said to his students, "Sit and know you are sitting, and the whole of the Dharma will be revealed to you." I like to think of this dimension of mindfulness as a listening quality, an immediate or bare awareness of what is here now. Mother Teresa captured this dimension well when asked by an interviewer what she says to God when she prays. Mother Teresa responded, "I don't say anything, I just listen." "Well, then what does God say to you?" the interviewer asked, puzzled. "He doesn't say anything," she replied. "He just listens. And if you don't understand that, I can't explain it to you." This listening quality brings us close to experience without putting a story to it. It allows us to see experience without the sticky layer of concepts and stories obscuring it. It allows the selfless, ever changing, interconnected nature of all things to shine through. When we really listen, when we are truly mindful, we don't interfere with experience. We don't try to manipulate it, dominate it, analyze it, or control it. We simply open to what is here without judgment. That is, we cease to become distracted by thought. We don't collapse into some idea or image of who or what we or others are. We don't put a story to our ineffable experience. When we are mindful, we remain entirely open and receptive to the always new, always changing, inescapable awe and mystery of experience. In addition to this bare presence or listening quality, mindfulness also requires meta awareness, an awareness of awareness itself. When experiencing an object of awareness, we also need to witness the knowing quality of mind, that the object and the known are inseparable, that they are two sides of the same coin. The objects of awareness are, in some sense, made of awareness. In other words, we need to hold both the ultimate and the relative, or the transcendent and the immanent at the same time. We need to remember that we are not two, that you are not apart from the world or from experience. Finally, mindfulness asks us to stay in the middleness of all things, that we listen from a place of equanimity. More specifically, mindfulness requires that we don't look at experience through the lens of greed or aversion. We don't grasp at the pleasant or push the unpleasant away. Mindfulness asks us to hold every piece of experience, whether pleasant or unpleasant, fully and intimately, without conditions. When we are mindful, we remain entirely open and receptive to the Dharma, to the truth of the present moment's experience. Okay, well, now that we've briefly recapped what it means to be mindful, let's go ahead and apply mindfulness first to the body. If you stop this audio for a moment and try to observe 10 breaths, you'll quickly discover that you don't have much freedom. Freedom from distraction or mindless attention, and that it's primarily thought that robs you of your freedom. This is okay, of course. The mind thinks, and for good reason. The thinker in our heads is our little problem creator and problem solver. Ultimately, the practice is not to get rid of thoughts, but rather to notice thoughts clearly. Not just the content of our thoughts, but thought as a phenomenon, as they are directly experienced, as a passing wave of energy in the mind, without losing the thread of awareness. In the beginning, this will be extremely difficult. In fact, it's often so difficult that for many who first start to meditate, they don't even realize how often they're getting swept away by thoughts. With a little practice, though, they begin to see how frequently and suddenly they find themselves down some rabbit hole with no idea of how they got there. They're supposed to be paying attention to the breath, say, to develop concentration, but there they were, thinking without realizing they were thinking. So, one of the first insights in our practice is to confront the sobering truth that we are almost entirely out of control. Unconscious thoughts are really the ones who have their hand on the wheel. As the author and longtime practitioner Stephen Batchelor puts it, the comforting illusion of personal coherence and continuity is ripped away to expose only fragmentary islands of consciousness, separated by yawning gulfs of unawareness. Grounding attention in the body helps us to close these gulfs of unawareness. Staying grounded in our bodies and environment helps us to keep our feet on the earth, to not space out. Amidst the endless stream of thoughts, which can toss us every which way, We can always come back to the simplicity of the body, to the ever changing field of sensations: tingling, pressure, vibrations, heat, cold, or whatever's there. And once we're in our bodies, we can realize that it was just the creative dimension of our minds that played out this entire drama. But here we are, just hanging out at our home. There's no immediate threat. We're safe. One way to support mindfulness of the body that I find incredibly useful is to make it a habit throughout the day to make the soft mental note: there is a body. Immediately, when I repeat this simple mantra, I feel reconnected with my body. I feel its relationship with space and the immediate environment. I feel my thoughts slow down. Again, this is a great way to lasso me back down to earth from up there in the clouds. Now, as you likely know from your own experience, the difficult emotions we face in our lives are experienced in the body, in the chest, stomach, throat, and other places in and even seemingly around the body. So it can appear counterintuitive to ground ourselves in the body when we're caught up in some emotion. But often, what I've found is that when we're caught in an emotion like sadness, fear, or shame, though we feel the emotion in our body, even rather strongly, we're not actually seeing the emotion clearly as an impersonal pattern of changing sensations, of tightness, pressure, heaviness, or whatever's there. Instead, we're primarily in our thoughts. We go into storytelling, judging, analyzing, or problem solving mode. And as our thoughts proliferate, so do our emotions. We get caught in a feedback loop of thoughts and emotions. When we truly focus on the body, however, we take ourselves out of this cycle of thought. As the mindful recovery leader Kevin Griffin says, there are no words in my body. Another reason it's important to bring our bodies into awareness, especially our posture, is because our bodies are also a means of expression. They communicate to other people. They make a statement about our attitudes, about how we feel and relate to others and to the world. What is your posture saying? Is it telling people you're lazy and disinterested? Is it aggressive and tense? Is it judgmental or skeptical? What vibes is your body sending out? Hard, cold, and closed off vibes? Or soft, warm, and open ones? Our postures also shape our internal landscape. Sitting slumped forward with your head hanging low, belly gazing, brings a different kind of energy to the system than standing tall with your arms out wide, chin raised high to the sky. Is your back strong and tall? Are your shoulders rolled back and relaxed? Is your chest open? Is your stomach relaxed? Is your jaw relaxed? Is your forehead relaxed? Are your fists relaxed and open? Okay, well, before moving to mindfulness of feelings, let's explore one more important dimension of the body: our breath. The power of the breath to cut through the complexities of discursive thinking should not be underestimated. The Buddha's instructions here are fourfold. First, we start with a simple instruction: breathing in, one knows, I am breathing in. Breathing out, one knows, I am breathing out. Then, as the mind settles from this increased concentration, to further refine our attention, the Buddha asks us to note: when breathing in long, one knows, I am breathing in long. When breathing in short, one knows, I am breathing in short. Again, we're not trying to control the breath. We're simply opening to the experience of the breath directly, keeping it very simple. And by making a note in this way, it creates a little frame around the experience to sturdy our attention and settle the mind, which allows us to deepen our insight. Next, the Buddha asks us to take a more active role, saying, "One trains thus: I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body. I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body. I shall breathe in, calming the body. I shall breathe out, calming the body." As you know, it's always much harder to accomplish anything when we're not calm. River, my partner, before I met her and our kids, had established and instilled into the kids 3 rules, which are relevant here. The first rule is don't freak out. The second is take deep breaths. And the third is work through your problem. Like the Buddha emphasized with his shift in language from knowing to training, staying calm is an important skill we must train in ourselves. It's like trying to surf or ride a longboard. If we're tense and rigid, we're going to create all kinds of disasters for ourselves. But if we can stay calm, there's a natural flow and flexibility that allows us to move through the world with more grace. This is true with our practice as well. Not only can we respond more wisely to each situation when we're calm, but we can also set ourselves up to deepen insight. Think of those times when you were trying to learn a new subject in school, say, and you were too tense or worried. It was much harder, wasn't it? When, on the other hand, we're relaxed, it's much easier to learn or accomplish a task. So, first, we open to the whole body through each breath, and then we calm the body. Breathing in, I feel connected to the whole body. Breathing out, calm, calm, calming. This is a mantra I use all the time to keep me relaxed, receptive, and capable. Now, like our bodies, many of us also take our breath for granted. Even though I had been practicing mindfulness for over a decade, I really didn't come to appreciate just how much that was true for me until I sat ayahuasca for the first time. All over the retreat center, there were signs posted that said, "Remember to enjoy your breath." My first thought upon seeing these signs was, That's a bit elementary. Couldn't they have placed signs that carried a bit more depth or wisdom to them?" And then I sat my first ceremony. Having that constant pillar there, the reminder that I am alive, that my body is breathing, that nothing is stable, all things are changing, really helped to keep the roof from collapsing in on me. The breath not only provides us with direct access to the truth of change, which helps keep us open, but it literally sustains our life. On average, we take 900 breaths an hour. That's 900 opportunities in this next hour to be grateful for this intake of life sustaining oxygen, which is being pumped through our blood, giving our body the energy necessary to think, to move, to smile, to laugh, and to love. This very next breath is sustaining your life. One last thing about the breath, which I love to bring into awareness, is that it's such a clear demonstration of our interconnection with the outside world. The outside world is continually flowing through us. We cannot be without it. We are inextricably linked, entirely at one with the wide open sky. Simply recognizing this can often bring much more space to awareness. It can push outward on every wall of our being. Okay, well, let's move on to the second foundation of mindfulness of feelings. In Buddhism, feeling has a very narrow definition. It's the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling tones that accompany every object of awareness, which should be thought of as a spectrum or dial rather than discretely. In English, we often use the words feelings and emotions interchangeably, but in the Buddhist frame, emotions are much more complex. They can contain many feelings associated with them. Anger, for example, can have pleasant feeling tones associated with that honeyed tip or sweet justice, while also containing unpleasant feeling tones associated with indignation or frustration. Feeling tones are an incredibly important dimension of experience to bring into awareness because they are what condition our habits and preferences. They're what propel us through the world. When a pleasant feeling tone arises with an object of mind, we usually try to grasp onto the object. We try not to let it go. We desire it and seek it out. When an unpleasant feeling arises, we tend to push it away. We resist it. We run and hide from it. And when a neutral feeling arises, we generally ignore it. We let it move through awareness with little attention around it. We become blind to some aspect of experience. When it comes down to it, feeling tones are what bring experience to life. For this same reason, feeling tones are what toss us into the spiraling abyss of self concern. They're what collapse attention into the contents of awareness. So it's important to include feelings in our practice because without becoming aware of these powerful forces, we'll get dragged around by them. Just consider how many of your actions throughout the day are due to avoiding an unpleasant feeling or acquiring pleasant feelings. Notice too how your sense of self gets tied up in these feeling tones, how you become identified with them. We take these fleeting energy states to be our own. My pain, my anger, my sadness. The Thai master Ajahn Chah once sat retreat by himself in a little hut near a village where, one night, the villagers were celebrating with loud music. At first, Ajahn Chah was annoyed. Don't they know I'm here on retreat? He quickly realized, however, that the problem wasn't the music. It was his own mind. They're just having a good time down there, he thought to himself. It's me who's making myself miserable up here. The sound is just sound. It's me who is going out to annoy it. If I leave the sound alone, it won't annoy me. It's just doing what sound does. It makes sound. This is its job. So if I don't go out and bother the sound, it's not going to bother me. This is interesting to note because often we feel like it's something we're attached to, a person, a material object, a food, or whatever it may be, when in reality, it's the feeling tone the mind attaches to. So when we can get below the concept or preference, I do or don't like this object, emotion, or mind state, and instead meet the raw experience of the feeling itself, we can start to get ahead of our reactions. We can begin to relate to things with wisdom, impersonally. It's not about me anymore. It's just biology, the old survival parts of the brain that are trying to protect me. There are no reasons or rationalizing here, just instinctual reactions meant to push us away from danger and move us toward food, sex, and other Darwinian needs, however outdated or unskillful they may be in manner. All we need to do then is accept the feeling and relax into it. We can give up the fight and instead hold the feeling with unconditional love, without judgment or reactivity. As we develop our ability to be with feelings in this way, noticing their impersonal and ever changing nature, without judging or automatically reacting to them, we start to get a taste of true equanimity. And as our equanimity grows, so does our capacity for freedom, our capacity for responding with discerning wisdom. We'll have the choice to respond to people and situations with kindness, compassion, patience, and joy, rather than automatically react from a place of desire, aversion, or delusion. This, in turn, will lead to a deeper sense of calm, which will allow us to be more concentrated, which will allow us to develop more insight and wisdom. As you can see, there's a reason the Buddha singled out feelings as one of the four foundations of mindfulness. The more we open to them, the more our life will spiral upwards. So, what instructions does the Buddha provide for us? Well, as always, he keeps it simple and straightforward. When feeling a pleasant feeling, one knows, I feel a pleasant feeling. When feeling an unpleasant feeling, one knows, I feel an unpleasant feeling. When feeling a neutral feeling, one knows, I feel a neutral feeling. Again, to cultivate more mindfulness around this dimension of experience, as a feeling arises, whether pleasant or unpleasant, our goal once again is not to change it. We don't push it away if it's bad or hold on to it tightly if it's good. We simply drop down and back into our wide open hearts. We open ourselves to the feeling. We investigate it directly without reacting to it. And again, I don't mean conceptually. We don't analyze the feeling's relation to the object, the thought, sensation, or emotion. We simply become interested in the feeling tone as a matter of direct experience, as a raw phenomenon. What are the feelings associated with anger, joy, or sadness like? What are these unpleasant feelings in my back like? What's their character or quality? Again, we just need to allow feelings into awareness, accept them, and become interested in them. We don't judge them, we don't analyze them, we don't compare them. We just know this unpleasant feeling feels like this. This pleasant feeling feels like this. This neutral feeling feels like this. Now, because so many feelings are arising and disappearing all the time, it can be helpful in the beginning to primarily open to those bodily sensations that really pull at your attention. Make a soft mental note of the sensation: tingling, pleasant; tension, unpleasant. And when the feeling no longer pulls at you, note its disappearance and go back to the frame: there is a body. You might even consider doing a quick body scan every morning when you wake up and again at night before you go to sleep. Another skillful thing to do with feelings, whether physical or emotional, is to contemplate their impermanent and changing nature. Just consider that every feeling you've experienced, every feeling associated with embarrassment, rejection, shame, hatred, jealousy, grief, or doubt, every single unpleasant feeling you have ever experienced has come and gone all on its own. This feeling too will pass away all on its own. There's no need to resist it. There's no need to change it. You can simply hold it like a newborn baby with love, care, and compassion. Okay, well, before we explore the third foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of mind states, let's explore one more aspect of feeling tones: the difference between what the Buddha called worldly and unworldly feeling tones. Worldly feelings are all the feelings associated with our senses. We eat some chocolate, and there are sensations in the mouth accompanied by pleasant feeling tones. Unworldly feelings, however, refer to feelings associated with our ultimate nature, feelings associated with love and wisdom, feelings associated with renunciation, generosity, kindness, compassion, mudita, and equanimity. The more you can awaken to the subtle warmth and pleasantness of these unworldly feelings, the less likely you'll be lured by the senses, and the more you'll be able to find a lasting contentment and peace. As you likely know from your own experience, most of us seek happiness by chasing pleasant worldly feelings, one hit of pleasure after another. And again, as I'm sure you know, there are also many pitfalls to this approach for securing happiness and satisfaction. First, because they're so fleeting, they're extremely unreliable and ultimately unsatisfactory. Our desires are like a black hole. As soon as one is filled, another desire arises in the next moment. A second pitfall is that some of our desires are harmful on their face, like certain drugs, sex with minors, particular types of thrill seeking, etc. And finally, when we think of our sensual desires in terms of addiction, we can see just how much control they have over our lives, and further, how much dis-ease this brings to our system. Just consider if we wanted to have sex all the time with everyone we saw, and we wanted to eat all the foods and have all the things, our lives would be a living hell, a constant nagging, itching. The Buddha captured this well when he said, "What the world calls happiness, I call suffering. What the world calls suffering, I call happiness." With the unworldly pleasures, the Buddha is pointing us toward pleasures that don't have these hidden or not so hidden dangers, and which can eventually become the basis for our awakening. So, you may find it extremely skillful to start opening awareness to these unworldly feelings. What does gratitude feel like? What does generosity feel like? How do you feel when you refrain from gossip or refrain from eating that second or third slice of cake? What does it feel like when you're able to abide in equanimity? As you increase your direct awareness of these unworldly feelings, I think you'll discover that the wanting mind will naturally settle, and you'll slowly grow into a warm, relaxed, and contented state of being. Okay, well, let's move on to explore the third foundation of mindfulness: mindfulness of mind states, moods, and emotions, or mindfulness of heart mind. The translation here for the fourth foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of citta. In many Asian countries, they don't distinguish between the heart and mind. If you ask them to point to their mind, they would point to their heart. This may seem a bit strange for those of us who grew up in a Western culture and have been so strongly conditioned to live from our headspace. But believe it or not, there's another way to be. We can orient, live, and relate from the wholeness of our heart mind, which encompasses the ego or thinker, but is not confined to it. Locke Kelly, a meditation teacher who I describe as an architect of mind and a true warrior of love, one of the kindest and wisest people I've met, tells a relevant story about one of the first scientists to travel to Nepal to study the brainwaves of monks. After the researcher arrived with his trunk full of equipment, he started to show the monks what he had planned on doing. So they sat there politely as they watched him pull out his equipment. Then the researcher took out an EEG cap, which he placed over the top of his head, and the monks began to laugh. Surprised, he asked, "What's so funny? Why would you look there in your head? This is where we experience meditation," they said, as they put their hands on their chests, "in our heart mind." I think this story helps to capture both the vastness and the intimacy of the third foundation of mindfulness. With mindfulness of citta, or heart mind, we not only train ourselves to become aware of all the mind states, moods, and emotions that arise and how they color and condition our hearts and minds, but we train ourselves to become mindful of our attitude or posture towards them. In short, we open to the three unwholesome roots: desire, aversion, and illusion. So, really, it's a practice of shaping the right attitude toward experience. The Burmese teacher, Sayadaw U Tejaniya, encourages us to ask throughout our sitting and throughout our day, what's the attitude in the mind right now? I will also at times frame this as, what's my posture to experience right now? Or, what's the posture in the mind? Am I leaning into or away from some element of experience? Or am I right here with it, observing and learning from the experience as it is? Am I wanting things to be different than they are? Or am I settled back, open, and interested in what is unfolding? Am I trying to control experience? Trying to anticipate it? Expecting that something will happen? Or am I flowing along with it, responding with wisdom? A mind free of compulsive liking and disliking is what allows us to see things clearly as they are, in a relaxed and alert way. Whatever you are experiencing in this moment, U Tejaniya reminds us, is the right experience. No experience out there is better than the present experience. An experience is an experience. An object is an object. It is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. It's our attitude toward experience that matters. Are we looking at experience through the lens of desire, aversion, or delusion? Again, what's the attitude in the mind right now? Often, when I simply ask this question, I tend to notice a softening in my body, heart, and mind. It's important to see that dissatisfaction arises from the delusion that things are not the way we think they should be. We see this all the time with the yogi or meditator mind. We sit and our whole experience is bright, clear, and open. And so we think we had a good sit. Then the next day or next session, we sit and our whole experience is cloudy, painful, and dark. And so we think we had a bad sit or that we're a bad meditator. This is the attitude we're trying to avoid. It closes the mind and hinders our practice. As the 5th century Zen master Janzi Zenkan said, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When liking and disliking are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no judgments for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. Now, we'll all have unskillful attitudes from time to time. That's just part of being human. So, rather than double down on our aversion, rather than condemn an unskillful attitude, we can instead accept it, relax into it, and learn from it. We can condition a compassionate response. We can extend patience and grace to ourselves, understanding that we will fall from time to time. And of course, we all have preferences, likes, and dislikes, and this is okay. To have preferences is not the problem. The problem is to be dragged around by our likes and dislikes, to be slaves to them, to collapse into them. We want to be able to see them from a place of equanimity so that we can respond to people and things with wisdom. Okay, well, before moving on to the final foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of Dhammas, let's briefly explore an important dimension of our practice and our lives. That is, our moods. Moods are tricky because not only are they difficult to open to, but they're difficult to remain open to. They're nebulous. They work under the surface and can last for days and sometimes even weeks or months. If we're not mindful of them, moods can wreak havoc on our lives, on our jobs, on our relationships, and on our own hearts and minds. So it's important to stay mindful of whatever moods we have operating. One skillful way to do this is to keep a journal of your moods, to track them. You can also tell those close to you that you're in a particular mood, and then ask them for whatever support or boundaries you need. Another reason moods are tricky is because they get so entangled in thought. When lost in a mood, we can build entire superstructures of self around them, skyscrapers, and even cityscapes. If we're not careful, if we don't stay aware of the impersonal and ever changing nature of all the bodily sensations, their corresponding feelings, and associated thoughts, all of which we simply denote as depression, anger, etc., the mood reinforces our sense of self. And if it endures, it can even end up defining our entire lives. It can become our root identity. I'm just an angry or depressed person. Again, our moods can consume us if we're not ardent in our mindfulness. This was an extremely hard lesson for me that took many years to understand. The emotions of sadness, which stemmed from thoughts of loneliness, from not being seen and understood by my family, friends, and community, and which also stemmed from physical and sexual abuse as a child, slowly morphed into a more permanent mood, which I eventually identified so heavily with: depression. This mood then caused more suicidal thoughts, which, produced more emotions of sadness and loneliness and fear, which often led to panic attacks. And on it went. It was mindfulness that finally saved me. It didn't make my suicidal or lonely thoughts and emotions go away, but it allowed them to arise without forcing myself onto them. It allowed them to be here without struggle, which really helped to deflate the seemingly permanent mood of depression. If you commonly experience a certain mood, like depression or anger, talk to a therapist or let the people in your life know. Express what boundaries or support you need. You don't have to go at this alone, and you don't need to feel ashamed for having these moods. The humility and courage to express how you're feeling and what you need will give others the courage to do the same. And when we're all able to communicate more openly and honestly with each other in this way, all of us will be better situated to support one another. All right, well, let's turn to the fourth foundation of mindfulness of dhammas. The Pali word dhamma can create a lot of confusion because it has such a wide range of meanings, depending on the context. Dhamma, or dharma in Sanskrit, can be used to mean the truth of the moment's experience, or simply law, reality, or truth. It can also be used to refer to specific elements of the mind and body. Each of the mental and physical elements is called a dhamma. In the fourth foundation of mindfulness, however, we can think of dhammas as skillful frameworks we can apply to our moment to moment experience to help us eliminate suffering in our lives and in the lives of others. Now, though the Buddha's frameworks include the five hindrances, the five aggregates of clinging, the six sense spheres, the seven factors of awakening, the four noble truths, and the eightfold path, here we'll focus only on the hindrances. And more specifically, we'll primarily focus only on the last three hindrances: restlessness, sloth and torpor, and doubt, since I've already spent quite a bit of time exploring desire and aversion in other places. In any case, as you likely know, no matter how dedicated you are to practice, there are times and seasons in our lives when everything feels off. We're not concentrated, we can't connect well to others or to our experience. Our emotions may be either dry and unfeeling, or heightened and in extreme turmoil. And it's nearly impossible to watch even a few breaths without becoming distracted. This, again, of course, is completely natural. It's a universal experience for each of us at times to be flooded with obstacles that cloud our hearts and minds and prevent us from staying open, connected, and receptive to the ever changing flow of experience. That's why I thought we'd take this space to look a bit closer at the hindrances. We'll practice identifying them, opening to them, and working skillfully with them. We'll learn how to embrace them as a part of our path rather than treat them as personal failings or something bad we must avoid. Okay, well, let's begin by briefly going over each of them. Desire, as you know, is that sense of reaching out for pleasure, wanting it, grasping it, longing for it. Whereas aversion is any kind of pushing away from experience. And I just want to point out that the aversion I'm speaking to here, this pushing away, must come from a place of ill will. Remember, we can put up healthy boundaries if we do so from a place of love. Aversion includes things like hatred, anger, boredom, resistance, or irritation toward the unpleasant. The third is a low energy state, which is traditionally boxed into sloth and torpor, but which we can also think of as lethargy, sleepiness, drowsiness, dullness, heaviness, laziness, cowardice, or lack of driving power. The fourth is an overly energized state, a frenetic and excited one, which is often expressed as restlessness, worry, anxiety, and panic. And finally, the fifth is doubt, which expresses itself in a multitude of ways: self doubt, uncertainty, fear, confusion, or indecision. That feeling of going back and forth, or at its extreme, that feeling of being paralyzed, unable to make a decision or do anything at all. Again, there are no hard lines here. Experience is fluid. These are just useful concepts to identify and work skillfully with the obstacles that ostensibly collapse awareness into its contents, creating a strong sense of self that feels isolated, cut off, alone, or at odds with the world. And I chose to stick with these five because, again, they encompass most of the general disturbances we face, especially if we look at the energetic quality of each of them. That is, reaching out, pushing away, collapsing in, bursting out, and paralysis. To see these energetic states more clearly and how they impact the mind, the Buddha used two metaphors which I'd like to share. In the first, the mind is thought of as a clean and tranquil pond that reflects our image clearly. When desire is present, however, it's as if the pond has been colored by a dye, the rose tinted lenses metaphor. Our desires, our wants, and fantasies color our perception of things. They give the objects of experience qualities they don't really have. A body, for example, is just a body. Lust is not a quality of the body itself. When, on the other hand, the heat of aversion is present, it's as if the water is boiling. So again, we can't see our reflection clearly until the water cools down. With sloth and torpor, it's like there's algae growing heavily across the pond, making it slimy and murky. There's a stagnation of mind that prevents us from seeing the mind's true nature. With restlessness, anxiety, and worry, it's like the wind is agitating the surface of the pond. The body and mind are tossed around by a tense and overactive nervous system. And finally, with doubt, it's like the pond is filled with a thick, sticky mud. We can't see anything well, and so we don't know what to make of it, let alone how to move through it. As you can see, this metaphor helps us to understand how the hindrances are experienced in our own minds. The intention of the second metaphor, however, which I'll share now, is to emphasize that these hindrances are only visitors. Once we start to see them and how they impact our minds while they're present, we can then open our awareness to the quality of our minds when each of the hindrances disappear back into the wide open space of mind. When you mindfully watch greed subside, the Buddha asks, does it feel as if you've just been released from a debt? What about aversion? Does it feel like you've just recovered from an illness? What about apathy and lethargy? Does it feel like you've just been released from a dark prison? What about restlessness, anxiety, and worry? Do you feel like you've just been given your freedom or released from servitude? What about doubt? Do you feel like you've just made it out of the desert alive? Rather than look at these as clever metaphors, let them point you to your own direct experience of, first, what the mind is like when the hindrances are present, and second, what it's like when each subsides. Paying attention to this transition is a crucial dimension of practice because an incredible amount of freedom can be found here. First, you'll see their transitory nature and therefore won't be so easily captured by them. You'll understand, not conceptually, but your body will understand. You'll understand experientially that this hindrance too will pass. So there's no need to struggle with it. And second, by staying mindful of these transitions, you'll be given a window into the nature of awareness itself. As the hindrances dissolve, more and more, you'll be able to familiarize yourself with the openness, inherent freedom, clarity, and purity of awareness itself. Okay, well, let's take a look at sloth and torpor. To begin, sloth and torpor are actually two different mind states, but we'll consider them together since, really, they come as a package deal. Sloth is a sluggishness of mind. It's a lack of willpower, a sinking into the earth. And torpor, which always comes along for the ride, is a weakening of mental faculties. Torpor strips us of our mental prowess, agility, pliability, focus, and memory. We feel it when we nod off to sleep as we're trying to pay attention to a lecture or meeting, say. It's a mind made of butter that's too hard to spread. Sloth and torpor are a common experience when we first begin to meditate. especially if we've been conditioned for busyness, always leaning forward, living fast paced, constantly doing this, that, or the other thing. Most of us, most of the time, run on external stimulus, the city buzz, interactions with others, social media dings, shows, music, and other entertainment, the pressure of productivity, coffee or energy drinks, etc. So, when we first begin to meditate, we often confront a lot of boredom and dullness. Sitting still with ourselves is often the hardest thing in the world. Even a few minutes can be excruciating. But as we enter deeper into ourselves through meditation, we discover an incredible source of natural energy that allows our mind to become increasingly awake and alert on its own in a very easeful way. We meet the mind's natural quality. It simply knows. At this point, however, sloth and torpor start to show up in a different, more subtle way. They often show up as a mechanism to avoid or retreat from challenges and difficulties we're facing in our lives. So, when we're not mindful of this aspect of sloth and torpor, we're likely to strengthen our tendencies toward laziness, lethargy, apathy, and passivity. And once it grabs hold, this hindrance is extremely hard to release. It's comfortable and therefore seductive. So I can't stress how important it is that we catch these hindrances as soon as they start to creep in. The first step, again, is to simply note when sloth and torpor are present, one knows this is a mind filled with sloth and torpor. And when it fades, we open awareness to what the mind is like without it. Finally, after we become more familiar with their presence and absence, we can start to explore and familiarize ourselves with their causes and conditions. The Buddha helps to support our investigation by suggesting that their primary cause is unwise attention, a careless attention towards mental states like discontent and boredom. Sam Harris captures this well when he says, "One thing we discover in meditation is that there's no such thing as a boring object of attention. Boredom is simply a lack of attention. We only become convinced that we're bored because we've not found something compelling enough to capture our attention. Our attention is normally so blunt an instrument that we need something thrilling or terrifying to capture us. What pleases us most in those moments when we are fully captured by experience is the state of complete attention to the present. If you can muster that on your own through meditation, then any arbitrary object, the feeling of the wind past your hand as you walk, can be an exquisitely pleasurable thing to notice. Concentration is intrinsically pleasurable." Another thing to watch out for is sloth and torpor masquerading as self compassion. You might feel tired or lazy, and then sloth and torpor come in with a seductive voice that tells us, "You've been working so hard, my dear. You deserve a break. Go rest." Now, of course, sometimes we do need to rest, but very often, if we're honest with ourselves, I think we'll find that this is sloth and torpor causing us to retreat from life. We feel defeated by work or family or some other element of life. It's not that there isn't enough energy in the system, but rather we just want to retreat to our comforts, to our couch, to our shows, movies, or phone, rather than show up in our role as parent or spouse or friend. Another cause for sloth and torpor to arise are our unacknowledged emotions, specifically the stronger or traumatic emotions we tend to bury deep within. If this is the case, a great deal of sensitivity is required because often in these situations, sloth and torpor are acting as a defense mechanism. They're trying to protect us, regulating how much and how quickly repressed feelings should be sent to the surface of awareness. This doesn't mean we should overanalyze everything or search for some deep hidden meaning, but it should signal to us to hold our experience tenderly while we look inside to see what's happening. You might even consider doing this with a therapist. Okay, well, before we move on to explore restlessness, let me briefly just recap some common remedies for sloth and torpor. First is mindfulness, the watcher on the wall. Can we be with the hindrance mindfully until it disappears? The big mind, pure awareness itself, is never tired. See if you can notice that this sleepiness or dullness has an experiential or energetic mark. It's just a visitor. Whereas the true nature of mind is always wide awake and clear. It's open. Second, you can try to bring some vitality to the system by increasing your noting, bringing the energy of investigation. Third, you can get up and do some activity. Go on a walk, fold the laundry, call a friend, explore your emotions in a journal or diary. Fourth, you can tease the boundaries of your comfort levels. Put yourself out there in some way, creatively, socially, or in some other capacity. Fifth, you can reflect on death and the preciousness of this moment. You and everyone you love can die at any moment. Don't squander your life. Don't squander this moment. And finally, if you're still tired, go rest, my friend. Just as we need to watch out for self deception, we also need to be aware of being too hard on ourselves by denying the body rest when it needs it. All right, well, moving on to restlessness. The Pali word for restlessness is uddhaka, which can also mean agitation, excitement, or distraction. It's that feeling of not being settled on any object of experience, but shakily hovering around it. And closely related is kukaka, the Pali word to describe the mind state of worry, regret, and anxiety. We often experience this after we've done something harmful or when we didn't do something we should have done. At other times, we worry about some imagined future. We anticipate problems, what I like to call the what if mind. We also get anxious when we find ourselves comparing ourselves or judging ourselves about who we are, what kind of progress we've made. Again, the first instruction for working skillfully with restlessness is to simply note it when it arises. If restlessness or worry are present, one knows restlessness or worry are present. If restlessness or worry are not present, one knows restlessness or worry are not present. Then see if you can watch it subside and, as with the other hindrances, investigate their causes and conditions. One of the most important causes of restlessness is the balance between concentration and energy. The restless mind, I have found, is often due to a lack of concentration, which stabilizes and calms the mind. When the mind is concentrated on something, this is synonymous with saying the mind is still. It's abiding in quietude. It's focused or settled on a particular object. If after practicing concentration, however, we find ourselves still imbalanced, there are a few more things we can investigate. Generally, the most common cause for the restless mind is when our attention gets drawn into the contents of our thoughts, which love to go racing, as you know. This is especially true for us analytical and verbal types, like the Buddha's chief disciple, Sariputta, and like those of us with OCD, autism, and ADHD. Really, all of us carry this inclination for thinking, but there are definitely some of us whose dials are turned up. I saw a hilarious demonstration of this contrast when two friends of mine, a husband and wife, asked me to sit with them while they tried magic mushrooms for the first time. The wife, once under the influence, couldn't stop talking about and analyzing every aspect of her experience. It was as if I was listening to a sports announcer who gave me a play by play into her mind. The husband, on the other hand, couldn't formulate a single word. Responding to my question whether he wanted a drink of water seemed to be a damn near impossible task. There was no analyzing, no talking for him, just ineffable experience. For those of you like me who have your analytical dials turned up, it may take us more time to break through the clouds of concepts and thoughts, that sticky layer of film that sits over our experience, like it did for the Buddha's most trusted disciple, Sariputta. And that's okay. This can be a great strength in many ways, in business and communicating and teaching and planning and organizing and strategizing, etc. So, once we finally do break through the clouds of proliferating thought, we may have a lot to offer the world. But it's important to understand that there's a whole realm of insight and wisdom that can't be gained from discursive thinking. Wisdom can never come through the thought process, only through direct experience. Let me stress this again. No matter how much we read and think and talk about raising a child, running a company, traveling to space, tasting chocolate, it will never give us the actual experience of any of them. No matter how much we read and think and talk about the selfless, ever changing, interconnected nature of awareness, this alone will never give us the direct experience and understanding of it. Wisdom must be lived. Too many of us read book after book, trying to intellectualize our way through everything, including spiritual life. If you are one of these people, I invite you to explore a couple things in yourself. First, become curious whether there's an element of control underlying your need to constantly conceptualize, read and think and talk your way through everything. In a world of chaos and change, it's a natural impulse for us humans to seek security, order, and control through conceptualizing and storytelling. Without this, we often live in a state of agitation, worry, and uncertainty. But as soon as we give a story or explanation to something, or sometimes even a name, much of our worry dissipates. We now have a box to contain it in. In some sense, it's no longer a conceptual mystery. But remember, at bottom, everything is an impenetrable mystery. Consciousness cannot be reduced or explained away. It is simply what is. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to seek a better conceptual understanding of the world. We just need to make sure our sense of self isn't hiding out there. If we let go of concepts, if we let go of the analytical mind, is the self worried it will disappear? Is it worried it will no longer be needed? Really, this is getting at our deep seated fear of death. Finally, if you're unable to concentrate because the restless mind is too strong, see if you can focus not on the contents of thought, but on thought as it's directly experienced. What is a thought as a phenomenon? Again, not its contents, but as an energy state. All of us think all the time. We're obsessed with the contents of our thoughts. But how many of us stop to examine what a thought is in itself? Can you notice how these things that have so much power and control over us are little more than nothing? For those of us who have strong imaginations, yes, thoughts can be quite realistic and gripping. But for most of us, most of the time, thoughts are little more than passing puffs of smoke in the mind. Okay, well, another major red flag to watch out for with the restless mind is loquacious and frivolous chit chat. Loquacious and frivolous chit chat, whether you're a participant or receiver, is a sure way to send your mind into a storm of scattered, racing thoughts. Make sure to pay attention to this, not only in others, but in yourself. How much oxygen are you taking up? What's your word count in this conversation? Watch your WPMs, words per minute. Let's make sure we give people the room to respond to one point before moving on to another and another and another, whether we're with our friends or in a meeting at work. The world is too fast paced right now. We're getting far too ahead of ourselves. Let's slow it down. Is what I'm saying honest? Is it beneficial? Is it affectionate? Is it skillful? How can we truly explore the intentions and motivations of our words when our mouths are moving too fast? Another skillful thing you can do for yourself in this arena is to get off social media, get off the internet, go outside and touch grass. Turn all that shit off. Is it really making you better off? Be honest with yourself. Is it adding value or is it mostly frivolous, harmful, time consuming, and distracting? Now, of course, there are exceptions. It may be a great place for teachers, artists, and similar creators to share and promote their work. Just make sure to stay mindful and honest about your activity online. Who's in control? The algorithms or you? Do you intentionally set the times you'll open your phone to post and scroll? Or do you reactively open your phone without any thought or intention? Is the digital world filling your head with noise? Or is it keeping you on your path, pointing you toward your deepest aims and intentions? Another way I get caught in the restless mind is by obsessing over hurtful things I've done. Now, don't get me wrong, it's important to feel remorse for what we've done. We want to learn from those painful experiences so we can do better in the future. Sam Harris gives a pointed example of this with a thought experiment. Assume, he says, we've created a pill that can take away our feelings of shame and guilt. Now, imagine a mother takes a bath with her baby on her chest. During the bath, the mother accidentally falls asleep. When she wakes up, she discovers that her baby is drowned. The mother is obviously suffering immensely. So the question is, when do we give her the pill? An hour after? A week? A month? A year? A decade? Remorse, as I tell my kids when they're feeling bad about something they've done, is just a message from love, a reminder to prevent us from causing harm again. Rather than carry it negatively, we can be thankful for that reminder. But once we've learned from it, we don't need to punish ourselves unnecessarily. Rather, we can reconnect with our commitment to non harm and let that be our object of concentration. When we are calm and concentrated, focused on our commitment to non harm, we'll be less likely to cause harm in the present, therefore, creating more ease for ourselves in the future. We can live with the peace of non remorse. Okay, before we move on to doubt, let me mention one more trick to deal with the restless mind. Often, when our mind is frenetically running about, we think it's impossible to stay mindful. But remember, there's no certain way the mind needs to be in order for us to practice mindfulness. Every mind state is perfectly suited for practice. Sometimes we just need a small shift in frame. One note given to me by Joseph Goldstein, which has been of tremendous help, is a lot of thinking. This way, it's no problem that the mind is spinning out. We can keep the thread of mindfulness by simply noting this is the way the mind is right now, and that's okay. Okay, moving on now to doubt. The first thing I want to make clear is that there's a healthy kind of doubt, which asks us not to take things on authority. Dogma is a poison of the mind. Don't just do or believe things because God, a prophet, a parent, a book, a teacher, a sign, a fortune teller, an astrologist, or anyone or anything else tells you to. This just leads us to become unthinking, uncritical, brainless walking zombies who don't take responsibility for ourselves. It is the kind of blind faith that leads to the Holocaust, the Christian Dark Ages, jihadist suicide bombers, and all kinds of other harm. To doubt authority, to doubt dogma, to doubt tradition, and instead critically investigate something for yourself is something I highly encourage, as does the Buddha. The world needs more critical thinkers. We are all becoming far too passive, simply accepting whatever information, news, or media is thrown at us in our echo chamber. The kind of doubt that is harmful is the doubt that freezes us. We're afraid of what is ahead. We come to a fork in the road and just sit down. We waver back and forth, and so we never move anywhere. This can be a strong hindrance for those of us who feel like everything we do must be perfect. But as I've stressed many times before, the only way to progress is through our mistakes. So when we come to a crossroads and don't know which way to go, as we all must at times in our lives, act. Not carelessly, not without thought, but once you've done your due diligence, take a risk, follow your gut. If we aren't willing to move forward in the face of uncertainty, again, we'll never move anywhere or do anything at all. We'll never give ourselves the opportunity to know whether we took the wrong turn. and so we'll never be able to course correct. Now, doubt in the Buddha's philosophy typically applies narrowly to Dharma practice and the support systems around it, but I'm going to speak to it more broadly in a way that encapsulates both the practice and our lives. After all, like me, I'm sure many of you face doubt in your relationships, in your education, in your career, in your art, and in other areas of your life. How do I know if this is the person I want to commit to, establish a life with, have kids with? Am I worthy of this person? Do I really know what I'm doing in my career? Do I stay at my job, which gives me a kind of security? Or do I take a risk and chase after my dreams? Again, I hope to present doubt in a way that is applicable to any arena of your life. One way in which doubt shows up for many of us, especially for those of us who have been burned by religion or some spiritual teacher, is in the presentation of any framework or belief system. And of course, this is for good reason. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So, when we come across the Buddha's teachings or any new practice or framework, we may question its legitimacy. This kind of doubt can be extremely skillful if we use it to fuel our investigation of a claim or belief. There are a passion and vitality behind healthy skepticism that keeps our faculties sharp. Where this kind of doubt becomes a problem, though, is when it triggers an automatic rejection of things presented to us. This is a sure way to stunt our growth and limit our understanding. So it's important that we remain open, that we hold frames lightly. We just need to make sure we have the support and protection of reason, that secular process of conjecture and refutation, of creativity and criticism, so we don't become a pawn in someone else's game, a prophet's puppet. We don't want to download and install a bad operating system. Another way doubt appears in the context of the Buddha's teachings, which also applies to life more generally, is when we never commit ourselves long enough to anything. That is, we constantly doubt our path, practice, method, work, partner, etc. Spiritual growth, like any skill, takes time. Again, it's not like understanding something conceptually. It takes experience, it takes practice. If you try to start a fire by rubbing two sticks together, quit after a few seconds because it isn't working, try another approach like hitting two rocks together, and then quit again, you're never going to get a fire. So if you decide to try a practice, then really try. Give it enough time and devotion. Too many of us in our culture want the easy way out, the quick fix. This isn't how spiritual practice works, or anything else for that matter. Now, of course, there will be many practices out there that are not the right fit for you. So it's okay to explore and try different things on. But to make real progress in any avenue of life, whether it be a skill, a career, a relationship, a spiritual practice, you must sincerely devote yourself to it. We can't just half ass it for brief stints of time. The next kind of doubt is self doubt, which has two flavors I'd like to explore. The first is imposter syndrome, the experience of feeling like a fraud. We fear that people will discover who we truly are, not experienced enough, capable enough, or qualified enough. I've had so many people in my life who have done well in their careers express this to me. I'm just waiting for the day when someone finally busts me, when they realize that I've just been winging it the whole time. Listen, I tell them, we're all just a bunch of kids playing in this cosmic sandbox without a clue about much of anything. All these CEOs, executives, and managers are in the same position. They're just kids trying their best to figure this out. You've gotten to where you are because you've demonstrated yourself through your work ethic or creativity or organizational problem solving or people skills. Own that. And remember, you're not alone in your doubt. A little doubt helps to keep us humble, open, and grounded. It's a kind of fertilizer for growth. Just don't put too much into the soil, or else it'll destroy your whole garden. Another way I see self doubt express itself is through self sabotage. How many times must we undermine ourselves, our strengths and talents, our values, dreams, and aspirations? Why do so many of us procrastinate doing what is most important to us and instead focus on the tedious, comfortable, unimportant things? Why do we self medicate with drugs or alcohol? Why do we lash out at those we love most? Why do we constantly find ourselves putting others' needs before our own, even though we're drowning? Why do we comfort eat, or in extreme cases, engage in self harm? There are many reasons for these behaviors, but most often it's from past traumas and the beliefs we have built around them. So, the primary remedy here is wisdom, our mindfulness practice. More specifically, we want to be mindful of our repetitive patterns, our conditioned thoughts and behaviors. These patterns, though, can be extremely hard to notice and break on our own. So it may be beneficial, especially if you have thoughts or behaviors of self harm, to see a licensed therapist, particularly one who pairs mindfulness with something like CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps to methodically rewrite some of the scripts and behaviors we have running. And for those of us who find ourselves sabotaging our relationships, there's often some hurt that needs to be held with the loving, tender care of mindfulness. To develop deep and meaningful relationships requires us to be vulnerable. And if being vulnerable in the past led to pain, distrust, abandonment, or neglect, it's no wonder we have this little protector in us who's doing their best to prevent that kind of hurt from happening again. So, again, exploring these emotions and fears with a licensed therapist can be useful. It can help us to understand our relationship patterns that developed in childhood and to identify our triggers for self sabotaging behaviors. But you can also take steps yourself by exploring and communicating your habits, fears, triggers, and emotions with your partner or a close friend. I also highly recommend looking into Locke Kelly's work. Locke artfully and skillfully weaves together non dual mindfulness practices with the internal family systems model, opening infinite space for self compassion to arise for all parts of us. Okay, well, to close, I just want to remind you that the hindrances and all that underlie them, like our traumas, fears, and other unpleasant emotions, are not something we ever overcome, as many meditation teachers and masters claim. They're something we learn to approach with increasing love and equanimity. Of course, this trajectory is not always linear. There will be ups and downs, but you will learn to approach them with more ease over long stretches of time. This practice is a lifestyle. It is a practice of conscious living. May you truly be at peace.